Hello again to another Anglo Reacts. Today we'll be watching The Rise of Sinn Fein, the history of Ireland's nationalist parties from TLDR news. And let's just jump into it, guys. Because I'm living in Ireland for so many years, I should really know at least the basics.
This video was brought to you by the TLDR store. There's new badges being announced at the end of this video. So, the story of Sinn Fein begins in the 1870s, when the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, and the then Prime Minister William Gladstone proposed that Ireland, then part of the United Kingdom, should exist as a separate state under a dual monarchy, which is essentially when two kingdoms are ruled by the same monarch. Although their efforts were unsuccessful, in 1904 Irish writer Arthur Griffith wrote a book called The Resurrection of Hungary, a parallel for Ireland, in which he also argued that Ireland should exist alongside Great Britain as a dual monarchy unified by the British Crown, as happened in 1867 when Hungary went from being part of the Austrian Empire to a separate co-equal kingdom in Austria-Hungary. On the 28th of November 1905, he presented the Sinn Fein policy at the first annual convention of his organisation, the National Council, and this is usually the founding date of the Sinn Fein party. Sinn Fein, by the way, is Irish for we ourselves, or just ourselves. Sinn Fein members were heavily involved in the Easter Rising of 1916, which is when the Irish Republicans staged an armed insurrection against British rule in Ireland. Newspapers at the time actually nicknamed the insurrection the Sinn Fein Rising, and in the aftermath, Republicans came together under the banner of Sinn Fein. At the 1917 party conference, Sinn Fein dropped its dual monarchy and instead committed itself to the establishment of an Irish Republic. In the 1918 general election, Sinn Fein won 73 of Ireland's 105 seats, defeating the moderate Nationalist Irish Parliamentary Party, which advocated for Irish self-governance within the United Kingdom, and who had dominated Irish politics since the 1880s. This is largely because, in the aftermath of the Easter Uprising, the British Army had committed a series of war crimes, including secret trials without a defence. This isn't a biased thing to say, these could be fairly described as war crimes, because Crown law officers actually ruled them to be illegal. Anyway, the fact the British Army were executing Irish Republicans, plus the British attempt to introduce conscription in Ireland, made the Irish public increasingly hostile towards the British and, conversely, increasingly sympathetic to the Republican rebels and Sinn Fein, which helped them to do so well in the 1918 election. Now, instead of taking their seats in Westminster, the Sinn Fein MPs declared Irish independence and set up a separate parliament called Dáil Éireann, or the Revolutionary Dáil, which met for the first time on the 21st of January 1919 in Dublin's Mansion House. During the Irish War of Independence, which basically started with the Solo Hedbeg ambush on the same day as the Dáil's first meeting, the Dáil supported the Irish Republican Army. In August 1920, the Dáil adopted a motion that the Irish Republican Army would swear allegiance to the Dáil and to the Republic as a standing army. Members of the Dáil government, including Arthur Griffith, were involved in negotiating the Anglo-Irish Treaty with the British government in 1921, which ended the war. The treaty said two important things. First, it said that in December 1922, Ireland would become a self-governing dominion of the British Empire, like Australia or Canada, known as the Irish Free State. Second, it said that Northern Ireland, which had been defined in the 1920 Government of Ireland Act, would have the option of remaining in the UK. While Sinn Fein members supported the treaty 65 to 57, the substantial objecting minority refused to accept it, taking issue with both Ireland's status as a dominion and Northern Ireland's option to partition. In the June 1922 general election, both the pro- and anti-treaty factions ran as Sinn Fein. The pro-treaty Sinn Fein won the election with 39% of the vote and 58 of the 128 seats, while the anti-treaty Sinn Fein won 22% of the vote, which translated into 36 seats. Despite the general election demonstrating a clear majority of the public were in favour of the treaty, anti-treaty IRA forces refused to give up, which eventually led to the Irish Civil War. The war was fought between anti-treaty factions of the IRA and the Free State Army, which was supported by the British government. After the Free State Army won the war, the pro-treaty members of Sinn Fein formed a new party, The remaining anti-treaty members decided to commit to a policy of abstention, boycotting the Dáil. In March 1926, Eamon de Valera, the leader of what remained of Sinn Féin, created another anti-treaty party, which wanted to take Ireland from a dominion to a republic. At this point, Sinn Féin nearly collapsed as a party. In the June 1927 election, they won only 6 seats, and they didn't have the resources to compete in the subsequent September election. Sinn Féin then became a relatively obscure political outfit, more of a protest party than an actual political party, with Irish politics instead being dominated by their successor. In the 1970s, after an internal disagreement between the abstentionists, who didn't want to take a seat in the Dáil even if elected, and the anti-abstentionists, who were also aligned with far-left politics, the party split again, with the former group wanting to keep the name Sinn Féin, and the latter group renaming themselves the Workers' Party. At about the same time, the IRA split down similar lines into the Provisional IRA, which were more classically Irish nationalist, and the more Marxist, Official IRA. At this point, Sinn Féin were very much aligned to the Provisional IRA. They had nearly identical ideologies, and substantial overlap in membership, who had been fighting a guerrilla war against British and Northern Irish security forces since 1969, in response to what the IRA perceived as discrimination against the Catholic or nationalist minority by the Protestant or Unionist government and local authorities in Northern Ireland, especially the Royal Ulster Constabulary. This period, from 1969 until the Good Friday Agreement of 1998, is today known as the Troubles. In 1982, Gerry Adams took over Sinn Féin and decided that they should become more politically involved. In the 1983 general election, Adams won the constituency of Belfast West. Again, thanks to what voters perceived as excessive discrimination by British and Unionist authorities, which pushed them towards Sinn Féin. In 1986, Sinn Féin decided to end their policy of abstention for the Dáil, but not for Westminster. This caused another split within Sinn Féin, with some 20 delegates or so splitting off to create the Republic of Sinn Féin. But this wasn't as dramatic a split as that which occurred in the 1970s. The Republican Sinn Féin was, and is, a far smaller political outfit, with far less support. Anyway, because Sinn Féin are in favour of Irish reunification, they run candidates in Northern Ireland for UK general elections, and in the Republic of Ireland for their national parliament. And nonetheless, despite reneging on their policy of abstention, Sinn Féin never performed particularly well in Irish elections, failing to win more than 1 seat until 2002. This is somewhat unsurprising given their association with the IRA. However, they've steadily increased their vote share since, and in 2020 Sinn Féin actually received a plurality of first preference votes. Unfortunately for them, this didn't translate into a plurality of seats, because they failed to field enough candidates, essentially because they didn't expect to do as well as they did. To be fair, it was a seismic jump. Just the year before, in 2019, they'd only won 9.5% in the local elections. It's worth noting how phenomenal this is. Just the fact that the most popular party in the Republic of Ireland is a party that wants to reunify the island of Ireland. In order to get there, Sinn Féin want a referendum on the unification of Ireland within 5 years of their election, which, according to the Good Friday Agreement, is something only the UK government can allow. Aside from that, Sinn Féin's politics are generally left-wing. They want a massive spending rise and tax increase on businesses and the wealthy in order to solve Ireland's housing and health crisis. This is how Sinn Féin have become so popular. They've softened their Irish nationalism from unification via violence to unification via constitutional referendum, while focusing more on the day-to-day problems of health, housing and inequality in Ireland. Anyway, they've followed a similar success story in Northern Ireland. With an effective monopoly on the nationalist unification vote, Sinn Féin have historically done better in the north than the south. In 1997, they received 16% of the vote,
It took
and
me
this
a while to
steadily
understand that
increased
joke
until
there.
2019, when Sinn Féin's vote share fell from 29% to 23%, in part due to the fact that the DUP Sinn Féin government had been collapsed for almost 3 years by then. Nonetheless, recent polling in Northern Ireland has put Sinn Féin support at about 25%, well ahead of the DUP, who are in second place with just 16%. This is something we explained in our other video on Northern Ireland's current crisis. Unionist parties are currently struggling, and this will most likely benefit Sinn Féin. As things stand, Sinn Féin will win a plurality of Northern Irish votes in the next election, which could land them with a plurality on both sides of the border. Obviously, a 25% plurality isn't the same thing as a majority, which is what would be required for reunification, but it's worth noting that some Sinn Fein voters will be voting for their left-wing politics, not their nationalism, but it will bring the possibility of reunification into the political mainstream. What do you think of Northern Ireland's evolving situation? Would you support Sinn Fein, and what should be the future for the island? Let us know in the comments below. As I said at the start, we have a couple of new badges, the Northern Ireland pin and the Wales pin. This means we now have every single UK country represented, and as such you can also buy the full set at a discount. Pre-order those and check out the rest of the collection, including the Republic of Ireland, by clicking the link in the description. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers.
Okay guys, so I don't know what to say about it. Like, the history is kind of interesting, but I really don't know what to think about it. What should I think? And it's kind of old too. It's from 2021, so it's kind of outdated. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye bye.